As you know, I use this channel to talk about all things Golden State Warriors, all the problems that they are having, and coming up with possible solutions, showing film breakdowns, all that good stuff. But given what has transpired over the past week with the shocking passing of Coach Decky and just the complete and utter tragic nature of that situation, and the Warriors team as an organization suffering emotionally, God be with him. He's only 5 years older than me. So, I mean, it just kind of wakes you up to how fragile and short life can be. Just a humbling thing to see happen. I decided that this week is not the right time to be talking about anything Warriors necessarily in terms of video making, because as you know, there's a lot of critiquing to do. And yeah, it's just a tough time. So instead, what I wanted to do, since I haven't really communicated with my new subscribers, those of you that watch my videos, I truly appreciate you. Stick around because I'm going to bring you some of the best content in the world. And for people on Twitter who have also followed me in recent times, they don't really know my background or know who I am or my history. And while I'm not going to share everything in this video, I thought it would be a fun segment to kind of share my experiences from Twitter, because I've had some of the most unique experiences of my life by using this Twitter app. And these things would have never happened. You probably wouldn't be seeing me making this video right now if it wasn't for Twitter. So I wanted to share with you top 5 things that I experienced in my life thanks to Twitter. This way you'll get to know me a little bit as a person, and I can kind of build a relationship with you watching me right now. So let's get right to it. First one, I joined the app back in 2009 because there were a lot of contests going on at that time. And I happened to win a contest back then. And it was to meet the entire Oklahoma City Thunder team. That's when Kevin Durant was there, Russell Westbrook was there, James Harden was a rookie, Serge Ibaka. Am I missing anybody? Those were the primary names. And they were visiting New York, and they were visiting a shoe store in the Harlem area. And I was in that area at the time because I was working in Manhattan. And it was actually an event for, I believe, middle schoolers, based on what I saw. And they were playing video games with the players and all this kind of thing. I'm not quite sure exactly what they were promoting. And for whatever reason, House of Hoops was the place that was hosting these players, and this event also ran a contest on Twitter to have a chance to go to the event and kind of have an up-close experience with the players. I don't even remember what the contest was, but I was one of the winners. I got to attend it. I saw Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and I got to see these players up close, these superstars that I couldn't have imagined that I would ever get to meet them like that. Kevin Durant was one of them. I stuck a basketball card in his face and he signed it for me. So that was pretty amazing. I tried to get Russell Westbrook to sign a shirt, but he wouldn't even talk to me. He was just like shaking his head, saying that he doesn't have a pen. So I was just like, oh, can I get a photo with you then? And he just kind of walked away. So not the nicest person that I ever ran into. I also got to take a photo with rookie James Harden. But back then I had a flip phone, and the quality was not so good, the person who took that photo for me. So I don't actually really have a photo with James Harden. But regardless, to this day, I have this gem. Signed autograph card of Kevin Durant. And that was super cool. That was the first time ever that I had met an NBA player in person. And there's a whole lot more to this whole KD thing. So I'll get to that soon enough. Number 2, I won another contest. This time with Stephen Curry. This was back in 2012, I want to say. And back then, he wasn't really a superstar yet. He was not even really a star necessarily. He's a player that fans of the NBA recognize, but far from a household name. He was injury prone and all these things, right? So he was my favorite player at the time. He was one of the most unique players that I had laid eyes on. I saw the progression of his rookie year, and it just got crazier and crazier and crazier, where it just got to a point where I'm just like, what is this guy? His efficiency, the ease of which he scores, his ability to play make, and there's just an utter uniqueness about the way that he scored, and there was just a completeness about his game since his rookie year. And it just got to a point where I was so bought into him that I decided to invest into his rookie cards. And by the end of his rookie year, I had collected just about every single Steph Curry card that you could imagine. I'm pretty sure nobody had a better collection of Steph Curry rookie cards than me. And that's no lie. Anyway, he used to run contests on a weekly basis for merch, signed stuff, tickets, whatever the case may be. And I got the greatest one of all. A one-on-one Skype chat session face-to-face. He ran a contest in which he wanted his followers to sing a Christmas carol because it was Christmas time. And the one that he found most interesting, entertaining, whatever, would win the contest. And he handpicked me. And so I ended up having about an hour-long conversation with Steph Curry, my favorite player. I mean, what are the odds? Something like that could never happen if Twitter didn't exist. And that chat, which kind of turned into an interview, I kind of wish that I had more of a human-to-human conversation. I was so obsessed with the NBA and the game of basketball that I just turned it into an exclusively basketball conversation instead of kind of getting to know the person. So in that regard, I have some regrets, but I was a very young man at the time. I didn't know any better. It is what it is. I'm still super grateful for having that experience. And that interview is actually on my channel if you go and look. So you can go check that out in case you never saw it. Number 3, I became a part of NBA media by joining Sheridanhoops, which was run by Chris Sheridan. You know, I used to follow his stuff. I was a fan of his. I tried to engage with him on Twitter, see what it would take to be able to join his team. And next thing you know, we're exchanging DMs, and then we're exchanging emails, and then we meet in person. And suddenly, I'm being trained by longtime writer-editor Chris Bernucca. Chris had an accomplished team of writers on his staff. He used to write for ESPN. He used to be an insider journalist. He had been with the AP for 15 plus years. So he was just a veteran presence of NBA media. Imagine little old me having no journalistic experience, no writing experience. I'm just a country bumpkin from Korea who came here at the age of 11 not knowing a word of English. And next thing you know, I get an opportunity to write about the game of basketball. I may not have been the best writer in the world. I may not have studied journalism, media, English, writing, whatever, but I knew the game of basketball. That was good enough for Chris to give me a shot as Sheridan Blog, which to this day is my Twitter handle. So that's some background for you. That was actually a very stressful time in my life. I was very anxious. I developed anxiety in a way that I had never had before. I started to have breathing problems. All kinds of just weird issues came about, and I never understood why until later on in my life when I realized that, this is what anxiety feels like. I had never been anxious before that. The notion that something that I wrote up is going to be read by people was just mind-blowing to me. So I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to have grammatical errors. I wanted to come off as professional as I possibly could be. And thanks to Chris Bernucca and Chris Sheridan, I learned a lot. It got to a point where I was able to edit other people. So I came a long way. But along with that experience, I got to write about players. I got to meet players. I was followed by certain players. One of my first encounters was with Jamal Crawford, who's just one of the coolest dudes I know in the NBA. There's a kindness about him that I truly appreciate. And he gave me one of my first interviews for one of my articles. And it was about the Warriors, because there was a rivalry between the Clippers and the Warriors at that time. I also got to meet some absolute legends like Magic Johnson, Dennis Rodman. I even got to ask them questions and be able to write articles about it. I mean, it was just an incredible experience all around.
Magic, what do you think with Steve Kerr? He's doing terrific with the Warriors right now. What do you think has been the biggest difference for him? They essentially have the same roster, yet they're 18-2 best in the league.
Yeah, well, first, let's give Mark Jackson some credit, because Mark did a nice job setting the tone, and now Steve has taken what is an unbelievable team to another level. And what they're doing now is they're playing good defense, added with Mark Jackson's toughness that he gave them. See, one thing that Mark provided was the toughness, because he's a tough dude, and they took on Mark's personality. And then what Steve was been able to do is get them more layups. My problem with Golden State had been they were never a championship contender until now. Why? They didn't get enough points in the paint. This year we're starting to see them do two things better: team defense and getting more points in the paint. So now you look at them, they're a championship contending team now, for real. And so Steve's done a wonderful job of mixing the talent, opening up the offense where they can get a little bit more drives and layups. And so when you think about them, San Antonio, I think OKC, before it's done, it's going to have a lot to say about the West. And then the Clippers are playing, they won about 8 or 9 in a row, playing really good basketball. So to me, those four are the elite teams in the West, but Portland, Dallas will also have something to say. Houston will have something to say, but I think those four really are the teams that can win the championship.
Are there any issues between you and the U.S. government about the North Korea things?
No more record, North Korea, no more.
Dennis, you played with Steve. You still play with Steve Kerr for 3 years. He's coaching the Warriors now, having tremendous success. As opposed to Fisher, who's not so much with the New York Knicks. Did he ever give you the impression as a teammate that he could one day become a terrific coach in the NBA?
Steve Kerr ain't coaching shit. Steve Kerr's having a good time. He ain't coaching. He just having a good time. He just sitting there and let those kids shoot. That's all he's doing. He just sitting there. He ain't doing a damn thing. I'm gonna joke with Steve, but he's never been a coach before, right?
Right. This is his first year.
Derek Fisher's never been a coach before, right? Mark Jackson never been a coach before when he came in. All these players are coming in being coaches and stuff like that. Like, you get into a system where you can actually win, but you don't have to do anything. You just hire a bunch of good assistant coaches, and you're good to go.
I see. So that's your take on Steve Kerr.
That's pretty much. So you're good to go. But like I said, me and Steve Kerr's are really good friends, man. I like Steve, man. He's a cool ass guy. We go out sometimes, have a cigar, we smoke, have a couple of beers and stuff like that. He's a cool guy, man.
Okay.
Congratulations for him.
I see. Thank you very much.
And then came the All-Star Weekend, which happened to be happening in New York back in 2015 when Steph Curry was an All-Star starter. So I got to see him there in person. We greeted each other because we obviously already knew each other. I saw all the All-Stars that you could think of, whoever it was at that time back in 2015. LeBron James, Giannis. Unfortunately, I think Kobe had suffered an injury, so I didn't get to see him. Man, oh man. I did get to see Scottie Pippen and some other legends that were just there. Steve Kerr was also there. I got to actually ask him a question, believe it or not. I also got to meet Steph Curry's father, Del Curry. I got to ask him a question and write an article there. And one of the most interesting things ever happened to me. As you guys know, I'm a Warriors guy. And for Sheridan blog, every chance I got, I wrote about the Warriors. Actually, Harrison Barnes blocked me on Twitter. I think because I wrote an article about him that was maybe not the nicest. I got to see him as well. I tried to get him to unblock me, but he said, once you get blocked, you don't come back. But I have to tell you this story because it is just... For me at the time, it was completely mind-blowing. It was at the dunk contest and the three-point challenge night, and it was a snowy night. It was a very cold, snowy night in New York, and Chris Sheridan only had 2 seats available, and he decided to allow me to be one of the participants. So I went with a media pass. It was incredible, and Chris actually ended up not showing up that night because, well, it was a cold, snowy night, and he didn't feel like dealing with that. So there was an empty seat next to me. Now, this old white gentleman came and sat next to me. I had no idea who he was. I thought it was just another journalist. Chris wasn't going to be there anyway, so he sat there. I didn't say anything about it, and I'm sitting next to this guy for like a good 15 minutes or so. We were just kind of watching the skill challenge event unfold, and then suddenly this jacked guy, he comes running down, and he's talking to this guy that's sitting next to me just with so much respect, and just, it was a little confusing. Why is this young jacked individual coming down to this man and just showing him so much respect? And I just didn't understand. And then I took a look at his name tag, and it said Ron Adams on it. So for 15 minutes, I had been sitting next to Ron Adams, and I didn't say a word to him. Once I realized who it was, we got to talking. Because I don't remember if Klay was in that competition, but Steph Curry was certainly in that three-point competition, and he won it. And we watched that together. And while we were watching that together, we had a lot of conversations about the game of basketball. some things about the Warriors, certain players, a lot of insider information. And at the end of the conversation, and it was probably well over an hour that I got to speak with him, just sitting there right next to me. I mean, just unreal. Talk about manifesting out of thin air. And at the end of the conversation, he liked me enough that he actually offered me his phone number. I didn't even have to ask for it. So, I mean, just an unbelievable experience. Me as a Warriors guy, as a Warriors fan, and now part of the media, and now Ron Adams is sitting next to me. And he wasn't even supposed to be there. He was supposed to get courtside seats. But he had some problems with his ID for whatever reason. So he was just trying to find any seat available so he can watch his guy, Steph Curry. And again, I don't remember if Klay was there. He may have been. But just what are the odds? And none of that happens if I'm not a part of Sheridan Hoops. Only Chris Sheridan and his seat could have given me that opportunity. And none of this happens without Twitter. Okay, this video is getting a little long, so I'm going to try to make the next two really short, or as short as I possibly can. Number 4, just being followed. All kinds of NBA personnel. Media members, journalists, NBA players, connected people, Jamal Crawford, Andrew Bogut, Kevin Durant. Oh, how about this? It's so funny, my history with some of these players. Andrew Bogut actually also blocked me for the longest time. And then somewhere along the way, somehow, he unblocked me. And then somewhere along the way, somehow, he ended up following me. And now I'm in speaking terms with him. So once my platform gets large enough on YouTube, I plan on having some kind of one-on-one chat session with him at some point. And yes, Kevin Durant followed me on Twitter. And we had a long chat session in the DMs about a lot of things, which I will not share out of respect for the fact that it was a private conversation. And he had followed me for about 6 months or so until I tweeted this. And that's the problem with me, is that I have no filter. I just say whatever is in my heart because I use Twitter as kind of a historical journal of sorts. Whatever is actually happening, I'm typing it, I'm putting it in there. And this is kind of how I use Twitter. And the beautiful thing about that is that it has everything I've written for the last 12, 13 years or so. And to me, it's all recorded history. And if you saw some of my older tweets, I think you will understand why my channel's name is what it is. I'm just going to share a few with you here. But yes, Kevin Durant followed me for half a year and then decided to block me because of that one tweet. It is what it is. But to have that guy follow me because he enjoyed my content is a humbling experience. Which gets me to number 5. There's a function called Spaces on Twitter where you can start it up and you can speak publicly, and whoever is listening in is listening in. And somehow or another, I kind of became notorious in a lot of bad ways because people had certain notions of who I am, what kind of a person I am, all this kind of stuff, when at the end of the day, I was just all about breaking down the game of basketball in a very passionate way, and I guess kind of in a way the only way I knew how, which is to tell the truth. And these days, the truth is very polarizing. But this gave me the personality that I currently have on Twitter, and is part of the reason why 10,000 people are following me. So for anybody who doesn't have any context to who I am, I hope this video provides some level of context. Now, there's a lot more where that came from. There's a lot more behind the scenes, but this was kind of the general breakdown of my experiences on Twitter and how it just gave me such enriching experiences. Some of it have been rough. There's a lot of haters and there's a lot of vitriol sometimes, and I kind of have to deal with that on a daily basis on this app. And the best thing I can say in regards to that is that look at the experiences that I just shared with you. I use Twitter a certain way. I try to connect with people and make myself useful, and it just gave me access to these people that I would otherwise never have. So it's just an app that you can find a career by using this app, by forming certain relationships. So if you use it correctly enough, I suppose I did that and I got the experiences that I did out of it. What I would not recommend is to just scroll through, waste your time hating on this tweet and this person and that person. Oh, you're useless. Oh, who do you think you are? Oh, you're a nobody. Oh, you're a loser. I mean, come on. You're behaving like a 13-year-old. I'm sure there are plenty of 13-year-olds out there, but I also see grown men just tweeting complete and utter nonsense. What are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your time? Time is the most valuable thing you have in this life. Time is something that you can never get back. And you're using that set time to do that? You could be so much better. You could do so much better with your time. Using this former Bird app that is now called X. I don't want to make this video any longer than what it's already become. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts. Share your experiences. If you have any amazing ones to share, I would love to see them. And once again, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on YouTube, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your attention. And I will do everything possible to provide you with just the most elite content that you could imagine.